So what should you outsource first? That is a question everybody asks when they're really hitting the wall, right? You've got so much on your plate and you know that if you could just get some support around you, you could go faster. And the question is, well, what do I focus on as the task I really want to give away first? So in our last episode, we talked about step one of this. And step one is to get really clear on your zone of genius, those things that really drive revenue in your business and those tasks that you're focused on that really drive growth in the business. Step two is what we're going to do today, which is once you know where your zone is and where you're focused to really drive growth, anything that lives outside of that zone is an opportunity for you to hand off so that you can free up more time to be focused on the things that drive growth. And what we're going to do today is an exercise to help you think through what that might look like in your business. What I've done is really identify three columns here. And so column one is delegate. So these are things that we're going to look at that are things you could give away. They're valuable tasks that live outside of your zone of genius, meaning they're not things that are really A, something you're passionate about doing, or B, they're not generating revenue in the business. The second column is automate. So these are valuable things that need to be happening in the business, but you're doing them over and over. And wouldn't it be great if you could just do it once, get it systematized and automated and not have to do it anymore? So what are those tasks? And the third column is ditch. So these are things that need to be parked. They need to be put away for right now. We're not going to be focused on that, and we're parking them over here. So examples of delegate might look like for you in your business. It could be things like tech setup or customer service responses to folks that are reaching out to you as prospects or even in one of your programs. It could be things like PowerPoint design. You could outsource that. Launch creation if you want to have your entire launch outsourced. Bookkeeping. These are all examples of tasks that you might identify and say these are delegation tasks. The key to this is to start looking at what you're doing week to week and noticing those tasks and start to park them on this list. So you could say, this is what I'm doing. This is how much time I'm doing it. So for example, if you're doing webinar delivery and you're leading webinars for your audience every week or a couple times a week, that's something that could be automated. And when you automate it, if you're leading it a couple times a week, that could be several hours you're picking up in the week. Content delivery, something else that you're doing that could be automated, like maybe you're sending out a regular video post, or maybe you are doing social media posting that could be automated, or you have emails that you're sending out to prospects that could be automated, or you have folks that are coming into a program like your course or your coaching program and you could automate that. Every time you're doing one of these things, write it down and say, wow, this is something I would love to automate and not have to do anymore. When I think about what has to be ditched for the moment, it's anything outside of the power move you're working on right now. The one most important thing you're working on to grow the business. So looking at your list week to week, you can look at this and say, okay, I've got this evolving task list that's starting to show up of things that I could be delegating, things I could be automating, things that I'm ditching for now. When you look at your delegation and automation list, noticing how much time you spend on these things is the key to figuring out what you outsource first. Because the whole name of the game is to figure out how you can free up as much time as possible. So if you're spending most of your time on 2 or 3 of these stickies, these tasks, you could lump those together and say, this is something I want to outsource. And when I outsource it, it's going to free up a chunk of time that's going to allow you to spend more time in your zone. And that's the whole reason that we want to outsource, right? Is to free up time to grow. If you don't think about it this way, it's really easy to outsource something that you just don't want to do, right? And you outsource that, but it doesn't really create the impact in freeing up time for you to create more revenue. So thinking about what we talked about in our last episode about being in your zone and what drives revenue, along with where you're spending time outside your zone, that's going to help you make a really smart decision about who to outsource to first. So that's the task today, really to think through that. I'm going to invite you to think through what are those things that you want to delegate and automate, and what questions are showing up for you around that. And at the same time, if you want to revisit our previous episode about being in the zone of genius, I invite you to do that as well, because you really want to look at both of these at the same time to pick the right focus for who you're bringing on next.